Hi, my name is Emma, and I'm 26 years old. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be standing in a luxury ballroom in Portland, wearing a designer wedding dress, surrounded by 150 hand-picked guests, and still feel like something was wrong, I would have called you crazy. But that's exactly what happened. I woke up that morning feeling a mix of excitement and dread. The weather was perfect, clear skies, a soft breeze, and golden morning light flooding my room. It should have felt like a fairy tale. But something inside me just buzzed. Not nerves. Not cold feet. Something deeper. A low hum of unease that started the second I looked at the text from my mother, Margaret. Good morning, darling. The venue is being finalized. I've made a few updates to the decor. Don't worry, it'll look stunning in the photos. You'll thank me later. That's what she always did. Made decisions for me. Told me I'd be grateful later. And somehow, even on my own wedding day, she was still micromanaging. My fiancé, Lucas, had tried to convince me to elope in Chicago, where we live. We even talked about a lakeside ceremony, just close friends, simple and peaceful. But I said no. Some stupid part of me still wanted my mother's approval. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I did it her way this once, she'd finally accept the woman I'd become. The makeup artist arrived. The florist brought Margaret's hand-picked classic ivory and blush bouquet. Everything was on schedule. Everything was perfect. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I glanced in the mirror. My face was calm, my curls tamed just enough, my lips glossed. But behind the surface, I felt something dark swimming below, like the moment before a storm. Then came the knock. My best friend Hannah walked in, holding a small tray with 2 crystal bottles. Your mom sent this up, she said. She said it's a pre-wedding sparkle drink. Vitamin infused. Good for glowing skin, her words. One is for you, the other for Adam. I stared at the glitter swirling in the glass like suspended stars. A shimmery, rose gold liquid. The kind of thing influencers post before facials. You okay? Hannah asked, picking up on my silence. Yeah, I lied. Just taking it all in. What I didn't say, what I couldn't explain, was that the buzz of anxiety had just doubled. And I hadn't even left the dressing room yet. It's hard to explain the kind of fear that doesn't come from raised voices or bruises, but from subtle control wrapped in smiles, compliments laced with critique, and expectations that suffocate you even when you succeed. Growing up with Margaret as my mother meant every part of my identity was carefully edited by her. My curls? Too messy, dear. Straight hair looks polished. My favorite ripped jeans? Not suitable for a young woman with potential. My voice? Try not to sound so forceful. It intimidates people. Meanwhile, my younger brother Adam was adored. He could do no wrong. While I was nitpicked for scoring a 93 on a test, Adam's 78 came with a cheer and a proud story at dinner. Adam is just naturally charming, she'd tell guests. Emma's very smart, but a bit intense. As if being confident made me unlovable. My father, Robert, was always there, but only physically. He let Margaret take the reins, kept his head buried in work, and when I looked at him for support, he just offered a tired smile. Just try to keep the peace, Emma. You know how your mother is. I learned early to shrink myself. I hid my sketchbooks because Margaret said art wasn't a real career. I dated clean-cut boys from her country club circle, even though I never felt a spark, just to avoid arguments. I straightened my curls every morning like a ritual of compliance. But the rebellion came silently. At 18, I applied to journalism schools across the country, without telling her. I got into Northwestern in Chicago. I remember the way her lips tightened when I told her. She called it dramatic, said I was making a mistake leaving family and structure. But I left anyway. And it was there, away from Portland, away from the suffocating walls of perfection, that I became myself again. I let my curls grow back. I started photojournalism. I met people who liked me for who I was, not the version Margaret sculpted. At 24, I met Lucas in a cafe near my office. He spilled coffee on my planner, apologized 6 times, and then made me laugh so hard I forgot why I was ever nervous around anyone. He was gentle, grounded, creative. An architect who saw buildings the way I saw stories, layered, lived in, worth preserving. By 26, we were engaged. And for once in my life, I felt whole, seen, chosen, safe. So, why was I still trying to earn the approval of the one person who had never given it freely? Why had I let her take over my wedding? Why had I accepted that glitter drink? Those questions were starting to knot themselves in my chest. And the day was just getting started. By the time we arrived at the venue, the Westbrook Grand Ballroom, everything looked like a magazine spread. Ivory silk curtains framed the giant floor-to-ceiling windows, soft jazz floated in the background, and the chandeliers above us sparkled like diamonds. Margaret's fingerprints were on every inch of the place. "This looks like a royal wedding," Hannah whispered beside me. "It's exactly what I didn't want," I replied quietly. Lucas squeezed my hand as we stepped through the entrance. He looked amazing, navy suit, neatly combed hair, that calming energy I'd fallen in love with. He leaned in and murmured, "We can walk out of here right now if you want." I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "Let's just get through it." Guests buzzed around the cocktail area, corporate friends of Margaret's, her book club, her favorite couples from the country club. I barely knew a third of them. Meanwhile, Margaret floated through the crowd like the queen of a perfect empire. "Emma, there you are," she called, approaching in her signature pearls and slate blue dress. "You're 20 minutes behind schedule, but you look presentable. The photos will fix the under-eye bags." She kissed both my cheeks without really looking at me, then turned her attention to Hannah. "And you must be the best friend. Thank you for coming." "Of course," Hannah replied politely. "Emma's lucky to have this day." "Yes, lucky indeed," Margaret said with a smile that didn't match her tone. Moments later, Adam and Eric arrived. Adam looked like he belonged on a magazine cover, tailored suit, confident smile, the perfect golden child. Eric, his husband, was warm and thoughtful, always a little more grounded than Adam. We hugged tightly. "You okay?" Adam asked me. "Honestly, I feel like I'm in a movie I didn't write." "Well, for what it's worth, the lighting is phenomenal." He was joking, but his eyes searched mine for the truth. I gave him a half shrug. He didn't push. Across the room, my father Robert stood alone by the bar, nursing a glass of water. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the wallpaper. Typical. Then came the toast call. A server approached Margaret, who signaled for the family to gather near the stage. As we all made our way up, me, Lucas, Adam, Eric, Robert, I noticed another tray being carried behind us. And there it was again, the glitter drink. 2 glasses, this time. One for me, one for Adam. Margaret intercepted the tray and passed them out herself. "Here, darling," she said sweetly, handing me the shimmering drink. "I had this made especially for you. It'll help your skin look flawless in the photos." I stared at the liquid, glitter swirling like fairy dust. My instinct screamed. "Thanks, Mom," I said quietly. Then, as Adam leaned over to whisper something to Eric, I made a decision that would change everything. I swapped the glasses. The glass felt cool in my hand. Too cool. Too heavy. The glitter inside shimmered unnaturally, like it was trying too hard to be beautiful. Something about the smell, too, sweet but chemical, like artificial fruit laced with something sharp underneath. Adam turned back to face me, completely unaware that I'd just passed him a drink meant for me. "To survival," he joked, raising the glass. "And to being Mom's favorite until the very end." We clinked glasses. I forced a smile and sipped the new one, the one originally meant for him. It tasted bland. Just citrus and fizz. No strange edge. Whatever I'd smelled in the other drink, it was gone. For the next 20 minutes, I kept one eye on Adam while pretending to enjoy the conversations. The photographer asked for family photos. We smiled in front of the flower arch. Margaret directed angles, like a general at war. No. Tilt your head slightly, Emma. That side hides the jawline better." Lucas stayed close to me, his touch light on the small of my back, always silently checking if I was okay. Hannah kept cracking little jokes behind Margaret's back. Even Robert managed to stand beside us for a few shots, though he barely spoke. And then I saw it. Adam blinked too hard. He swayed just a little. Eric, laughing at something, didn't notice at first. But I did. Are you all right? I asked, walking over casually. Adam looked up, blinked again, and chuckled.
Yeah.
Just whoa. The room kind of shifted. Sit, I said quickly, grabbing a chair. His face had lost a little color. He wiped sweat from his brow. That drink was weird, he muttered. I feel floaty, like my brain's lagging behind my body. Eric crouched beside him, concern forming fast. Did you eat today? Drink water. Margaret arrived a moment later, perfect smile still in place. Is everything okay? He's fine, I said too quickly. Probably just a bit of dehydration. But he wasn't fine. And I knew it. By the time his knees buckled beneath him and he collapsed into Eric's arms, guests were gasping and turning around. My blood ran cold. Call 911, I said without hesitation.
Now.
Hannah was already on her phone. Eric was trying to keep Adam conscious, shaking him gently. Stay with me, babe. Margaret's voice cracked through the noise. What on earth is happening? I turned to her and said it out loud for the first time. He drank something he shouldn't have. And I knew, deep down, the only reason Adam was the one lying on the floor, and not me, was because I had trusted my gut. The sirens wailed in the distance, like a warning bell ringing through the glassy perfection of the venue. By the time the paramedics arrived, Adam was slipping in and out of consciousness. His eyes fluttered open and closed, his words incoherent, his body limp in Eric's arms. The party guests had backed away, forming a loose, whispering circle. Some looked concerned. Others looked entertained, like this was the kind of scandal that made expensive weddings worthwhile. Make space, please, a paramedic ordered, pushing through the crowd. He had a drink, I said quickly. Something a vitamin drink. It wasn't normal. Margaret tried to speak over me. It was just a wellness shot, something light. I had it specially made for Emma. Nothing serious. It smelled off, I said sharply. I switched drinks with him. I think it was meant for me. For the first time, Margaret's expression cracked. Not much, but enough. Her lips tensed. Her eyes darted toward the tray that had since been whisked away by staff. I watched her, really watched her, as she tried to maintain composure. But her hands, those perfectly manicured hands, trembled slightly. Lucas was at my side. You told me earlier you didn't trust it, he whispered. You did the right thing. The paramedics loaded Adam onto the stretcher. Eric went with him. I followed too, barely feeling my heels hitting the polished floor. Behind me, I heard murmurs. Did someone say poisoned? Was it the drink? Is the wedding still happening? Inside the ambulance bay of the hospital, reality settled like a weight across my chest. The ride was silent, but my mind screamed with 1,000 questions. Inside the hospital, everything moved fast. Blood work, IVs, monitors, nurses with firm instructions. A police officer stationed by the nurses' station. I paced the floor while Eric held Adam's hand and begged him to stay with him. Then came the doctor. Are you family? I'm his sister, I said. I gave him the drink, but I was supposed to drink it first. I think someone tried to drug me. The doctor looked alarmed but calm. Tests show a combination of sedatives in his system. Potent ones. Enough to sedate someone quickly, especially someone with Adam's lighter body weight. We're still identifying the second compound. Will he be okay? Eric asked. The doctor nodded cautiously. We got to him in time. He's responding slowly, but we're keeping him for observation. The police will want to speak to you. I nodded. I was ready. What I didn't expect was what came next. As I turned the corner to return to the waiting room, I saw my mother sitting perfectly upright, hands folded, posture immaculate, as if she were waiting for a luncheon, not an interrogation. And beside her on the floor sat her designer purse. Unzipped. A nurse walked over to the police officer and handed him a small item sealed in a plastic bag. It was a leather-bound diary. Margaret's. And the moment I saw it, something inside me broke wide open. Excuse me, I said, stepping forward. That diary, does it belong to her? Yes, the officer said. It was in her purse. You're the bride, correct? I am. And that drink wasn't meant for Adam. It was meant for me. The waiting room, sterile and still, buzzed with unspoken tension. Lucas sat beside me, our fingers loosely laced. Robert, my father, stood awkwardly by the vending machine, pretending to read the ingredients on a bag of chips. But no one was focused on snacks. All eyes were on the quiet storm building at the nurse's station, where Margaret, my mother, sat flanked by two uniformed police officers. The leather-bound diary rested on the desk in front of them, still sealed in the evidence bag. Emma, the female officer said gently, "We'd like to speak with you in private." I followed her into a side room, where her partner waited. A small notepad, a recorder, and a file folder sat on the table. "You believe the drink you were given was tampered with?" "Yes," I said. "My mother handed it to me herself. She said it would make me glow in the photos. But it smelled off medicinal. So I swapped it with my brother's glass when he wasn't looking." The officers exchanged glances. "Why would she want to harm you on your wedding day?" "Because she couldn't stand that I was getting married on my own terms," I said flatly. "She doesn't like Lucas. She thinks he's a threat to her control over me. She's always been like this, manipulative, obsessive. But this was different." The male officer opened the folder and pulled out a photocopied page. "We found this in her diary, dated 3 days ago." I leaned in and read the words scrawled in my mother's elegant handwriting. "If Emma goes through with this ridiculous wedding, it will destroy everything I've worked so hard to build. Lucas is too passive, too supportive of her independence. If the party doesn't change her mind, more direct measures may be necessary. Harold, as usual, is useless." I stared at it, ball rising in my throat. There was no ambiguity, no metaphor, just calculated intent. "She planned this," I whispered. "She planned to make me sick, maybe sick enough to miss the wedding, or cancel it altogether." "We believe so," the officer said. "Additional entries mention various substances and dosage research. We'll need a formal statement. And, depending on the toxicology report, this may escalate to attempted poisoning." I nodded slowly, the reality anchoring deeper with every breath. When I returned to the waiting area, Robert approached me cautiously. "Did she really write those things?" "Yes," I said. "And more." His face crumpled in quiet shame. I knew she was controlling, but I didn't think she'd go this far. I should have. "You should have stopped her years ago," I interrupted, not harshly, just honestly. He nodded, swallowing hard. Just then, a nurse poked her head out from the ICU corridor. "Adam's stable. He's awake and asking for you." I rushed down the hall and into the room where Adam, pale and tired but conscious, lay hooked up 2 and 4. Eric sat beside him, gripping his hand. "Hey," Adam rasped, offering a small smile. "So this wedding's really something, huh?" I laughed softly, tears welling in my eyes. "You scared the hell out of me." "You switched our drinks, didn't you?" he said, voice quiet but clear. "I did," I admitted. "It didn't smell right." "You saved my life," he whispered. "And maybe your own." I reached for his hand, holding on tight. We both knew nothing in our family would ever be the same again. Not even an hour after Adam stabilized, the hospital room door swung open. In stormed Margaret, flanked by a furious nurse and an overwhelmed security guard. "I demand to see my children," she barked. "This is a misunderstanding. I've done nothing wrong." Adam visibly flinched at the sound of her voice. I stood up instinctively, placing myself between her and his bed. "Mom," I said firmly, "you shouldn't be here." "Don't be ridiculous, Cassandra." "It's Emma," I snapped. "And you're not welcome." She laughed bitterly, her voice rising. "I don't know what lies you've told these people, but I was simply trying to help. That drink wasn't harmful, it was a mild sedative, nothing dangerous. It would have just helped you sleep off your stubbornness." The words landed like a slap in the air. "So you admit it?" I said, stunned. "You did put something in it?" "I meant hypothetically." She backpedaled, flustered. If I had, it would have only been because you've refused to listen to reason. You're throwing your life away on a man who encourages you to disobey me. Obey you? I echoed, voice shaking with anger. I'm not a child. I'm not your puppet. You tried to drug me on my wedding day. Margaret's face twisted with rage. You ungrateful girl. After everything I sacrificed for you, you think you'd even have a life without me? She lunged toward me, grabbing my shoulders with surprising force. In seconds, Lucas and Robert burst through the door. Lucas pulled her back and Robert finally, stepped in between us. That's enough, Margaret, he said, voice firmer than I'd ever heard it. You need help. Now. The security guard stepped forward, issuing a command into his radio. We need police back in the ICU wing. Suspect confirmed and attempting assault. Margaret began to thrash against them, her voice cracking into hysteria. You can't do this to me. I'm your mother. You'll see. I was right. She was right about one thing. This was the moment everything changed. The police arrived within minutes. The officers who had interviewed me earlier calmly informed her she was being placed under arrest for attempted poisoning, assault, and reckless endangerment. Margaret didn't go quietly. She screamed, swore, cried, and finally broke. Harold, say something, she sobbed, reaching toward my father. Robert looked at her with profound sadness. I should have gotten you help years ago. I'm sorry, Margaret, but I'm done enabling you. As they led her away in handcuffs, she locked eyes with me one final time. You'll regret this, Emma. You've ruined everything. No, I said quietly. I'm finally saving myself. And just like that, the woman who had controlled my life for 26 years disappeared through a hospital hallway, her image shattered, her power broken. And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. The days following Margaret's arrest moved like a strange dream, equal parts surreal and painfully clear. News of what happened at the wedding spread quickly. Local reporters latched onto the story. Well-known socialite arrested at daughter's wedding for attempted poisoning. Social media picked it up. Comments ranged from disbelief to outrage. We stayed in Portland longer than planned. Adam was discharged after 3 days, still weak but recovering. Lucas's parents, Charles and Teresa, offered their quiet home as a safe place for us to regroup. They gave us space, meals, and peace, something my own childhood home had rarely known. Then came the formal charges. The district attorney filed against Margaret for attempted poisoning, assault, reckless endangerment, unlawful administration of a controlled substance. The toxicology reports confirmed high doses of sedatives in the drink. Combined with the diary entries, the prosecution had more than enough to move forward. I was asked to testify. Are you sure you want to do this? Lucas asked one night as I sat holding the subpoena. She could have killed him, I whispered. And if I don't speak the truth, she'll never be held accountable. My father Robert filed for divorce the same week. He apologized again and again for not stepping in sooner, for letting her turn our family into a stage play of control. But I told him the truth. Your silence hurt, but your courage now matters more. During the pre-trial hearing, I gave a statement. I recounted what happened, how I'd smelled something off, how I'd trusted my instinct and switched the drinks. The court reviewed her diary, pages filled with resentment, venom, and obsession. They read aloud her writing. If the party doesn't change her mind, more direct measures may be necessary. Margaret's defense team leaned heavily on mental health. After psychiatric evaluation, she was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder with paranoid features, combined with untreated anxiety. Her lawyers requested leniency, therapy instead of prison. But the judge saw through the excuses. Mental health concerns may explain behavior, the judge said, but they do not excuse criminal intent. Margaret was sentenced to 3 years in state prison. No possibility of early parole. Mandatory psychiatric treatment during incarceration. A 5-year restraining order, preventing her from contacting me, Adam, or Robert. When the sentence was announced, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Grief, not for the punishment, but for the decades we'd all lost under her shadow. But justice had been served. Now came the healing. After the sentencing, everything felt strangely quiet. No more wedding chaos. No more constant dread. No more Margaret's voice buzzing in the back of my mind, judging, correcting, controlling. For the first time, silence felt like safety. Lucas and I returned to Chicago, where we slowly began piecing life back together. Our original wedding day had been destroyed, but our bond had only deepened. We chose to pause everything, not out of defeat, but out of intention. We needed time. We needed to reclaim our peace. I started therapy with a specialist in adult children of narcissistic parents. In one of our earliest sessions, she said something I'll never forget. When control is disguised as love, it leaves invisible scars. But awareness is the beginning of healing. I talked through childhood moments I'd buried. I learned how to set emotional boundaries. I recognized the years of internalized self-doubt that Margaret had planted in me like weeds. And slowly, I began pulling them out. Adam and I grew closer in those weeks than we had in years. We called each other often. He confessed that he too had felt pressure, not through criticism like me, but through overpraise and performance. He had to be perfect, charming, successful. Margaret's pride. I always thought she loved me more, he told me one night over video chat. But now I realize, she used me just differently. We laughed. We cried. We started saying, I love you more. Robert surprisingly began therapy too. He started joining a support group for spouses of individuals with personality disorders. He sold the house he and Margaret had shared for decades and moved into a small, sunlit apartment downtown. He even signed up for a cooking class. I've never made a decision for myself, he told me. Not really. Until now. I watched as he transformed from a quiet ghost of a man into someone present, still healing, but trying. And as for me, I began writing again, not for work, but for myself. I penned an essay titled, When Your Wedding Day Reveals a Lifetime of Control, and submitted it to a national magazine. It was published within a month. Emails poured in from readers all over the country who had experienced something similar. You put into words the pain I've never been able to explain, one woman wrote. Lucas read every single message with me. He held my hand as I cried, laughed, and breathed. You're turning pain into purpose, he said one evening. That's power, Emma. He was right. For the first time in my life, I didn't need my mother's approval. I didn't need to meet someone else's idea of perfection. I was finally learning who I was on my own terms. 6 months later, on a quiet October afternoon, Lucas and I stood together beneath a small floral arch on the edge of Lake Michigan in Chicago. The sun shimmered gently on the water, the breeze was light, and around us stood only 40 people, our closest friends and family. There were no chandeliers, no society elites, no glitter drinks, just peace. I wore a simple white dress, nothing dramatic, nothing chosen for the camera. Hannah stood by my side as my maid of honor, tears already forming in her eyes before the ceremony even began. Adam, healthier and calmer than I'd seen him in years, was my man of honor. His husband Eric held his hand proudly in the second row. And when it was time to walk down the aisle, it was Robert, my father, who stepped forward, offering his arm with a shy but sincere smile. You sure about this? He asked, a hint of humor in his voice. Absolutely, I said. But thank you for finally showing up. I won't miss another moment, he promised. He walked me down slowly, not just in body, but in spirit. And when he placed my hand in Lucas's, he looked Lucas straight in the eye and said, I give my blessing to this union of equals. For simple words. And yet, they held the weight of generations. Our vows were personal, honest, free from performance. You saw the real me, I told Lucas, voice trembling, even when I was still afraid to see her myself. And I chose you, he said back, not to spite your story, but because of it. The guests clapped. I kissed him. And just like that, we were married on our terms. That evening, as we sat around a bonfire at our lakeside Airbnb, toasting with sparkling cider and wrapped in warm blankets, Adam leaned in. You know, he said, Mom used to say that a wedding was the crowning moment of a mother's work. But this is all you. I smiled, no longer weighed down by the need to argue or explain. And I finally feel free. Margaret remained in prison. She sent a few letters through her lawyer, some filled with apologies, others with deflections and bitterness. I read them. I acknowledged them. But I didn't respond. The restraining order was still in place, but honestly, I didn't need a court to tell me what my boundaries were anymore. I had built them myself, with healing, clarity, and love. Lucas and I started talking about the future, about starting a family someday. And for the first time, the thought didn't scare me, because I knew the cycle would stop with me. I'm terrified I'll become her, I confessed one night. But you won't, Lucas said with certainty, because you already faced her and chose a different path. He was right. In time, I published more pieces about healing from emotional abuse, about the power of intuition, and about trusting yourself, even when the person you're protecting yourself from is someone who is supposed to love you. Sometimes family isn't who you're born to, it's who you build. That message resonated deeply with others, and it had become the core of my truth. I don't know if Margaret will ever change. That's her journey now. But I know this. I'm not waiting for her to change before I live. And if you're reading this and doubting your gut, if someone's love feels like a leash instead of a hug, listen to that voice inside you. It might just be the thing that saves your life. It saved mine. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it moved you or made you reflect on the power of trusting your instincts, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below to share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more real, emotional stories every week. Your support helps others find strength through shared experiences. Remember, your voice matters, your boundaries are valid, and you deserve a life filled with peace, not pain.